would you like from today?
I would like to unlearn the belief that resting in self or resting in being and simultaneously being engaged with some activity that requires outer, in quotes, attention. I know it's possible. I've seen it. I've done it. I've been there. But yes, to see and know the parts and play with them from a place of self with a capital S.
Resting as the self, the fulfillment that's intrinsic to our nature, while playing in the world, allowing parts that are wanting things to be alive in us without getting, while still with some identification as this causeless okayness, this fulfillment, like that, David?
You got it, buddy.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. What do you want from today? What do you want for David's?
For me, I could totally relate to what David was saying. And I think I am mindful of that every day. And sometimes I feel more present to that in my everyday life. And sometimes I would like to feel more of that. In addition, just to, discover maybe something new or deeper about myself, because every time I'm allow myself to be vulnerable or participate in something like this, there's just more to learn about me.
What do you want from today? When I become vulnerable, there's more to learn about me. We're going to go ahead and it's going to be 9 of us today. Welcome, everyone. Hey, Eli and Sarah and Zoe and my friend Jonathan, who I haven't seen in ages, and Jessica and Brenda and David and Antonio. I'm going to do my here for the hour from Eli. Yay. And just as we come together, we were looking at what do you want from today? And David was speaking of this simultaneous awareness, being aware, resting as this fulfillment, this causeless okayness, while simultaneously being engaged in the world where parts are at play. Can we be in as both simultaneously? And then Brenda was saying just the continuous joy of the vulnerability and getting to know more aspects of my humanity, of who I am, more intimate with that. What is it for you? What is your edge right now? What's of interest? We'll continue. We'll kind of quickly go around and hear from everybody on what the edge is for you today. But as we reflect on that, I'll just do my housekeeping real quick, that I'm a mediator, not a psychotherapist. So this isn't the IFS of psychotherapy, friends and colleagues exploring together. If everybody's good with being responsible for your own journey, if I can get a thumbs up, please. And then secondly, I always record these, but only for my own square, but the audio of what you shared could be shared. And so as always, at the end of the day, if you find there was something you were uncomfortable with, just stay on and tell me, and I can go delete, delete, delete. Otherwise, if everybody can get a thumbs up, if everybody's good, that this might be shared electronically with others that aren't here. Great. All right. Well, let's go around and just hear what the edge is. What's the interest as we kind of co-create this exploration today? And Eli, I'll go Eli and then Jonathan, and then I'll just I kind of go with my screen. Hey, Eli.
Hey, hope you're doing okay after weekend. The edge or kind of balancing protective anger and also sort of that like self-doubt and desire to not be, or like yeah.
Mhm. Nice. Thank you. How do we all relate to that self-doubt? Self-doubt that's here. And then another part that says, oh, I don't want to be doubting myself. I shouldn't be doing it. I don't want that. We feel that polarity. Nice. And then and protective anger. What about that? Like, I love the character from Inside Out, that movie, the little red guy, he turns red with anger. And it's like this anger. And is that truly and fully welcomed in you when it comes up? What do you see when you see that anger? Do you have a protective part that's like, no, you got to cover that up? How is anger met in your system? And I love what Eli said. He called it protective anger. Can we hear that when anger comes up, protective anger, if we can attach that word to it, it evokes such compassion, protective anger. Can't you find that with Eli's system? His protective anger comes up. There's compassion for it. And then just one game because Sarah loves this movie Inside Out, and I know some of us do too, with this like that anger that comes up, Eli too, like anger that comes up. This little red character turns red with anger and fire. When that happens, when anger happens in you, are you able to catch a glimpse of the essence there, even in the anger? A glimpse of what's it made of? Is it made of being? This is why I love the characters, the images of parts, especially this Inside Out. As we see our character of anger, is it possible that it's made of this beingness itself? I have a thought. We'll hear from Jonathan and then we'll take a dive and then we'll continue going around. How about that? Does anybody have anything bubbling that's like, no shit, I need to add this right in right now? Anything good? Anything we don't want to miss? Anything bubbling? Anything bubbling?
Hi, Sid. It's really good to see you. Welcome back. I feel like it's been a few weeks, maybe like a couple of weeks. So yeah, it's good to have you back and to have these gatherings. It's really good to be here with all of you, and there's a lot of us today. So that's really exciting. And yeah, I got the email that you weren't feeling well. So I'm really glad to see that you're doing well now. And yeah, thank you so much for holding this space for all of us to come together. And that's just what I wanted to say. Just wanted to welcome you.
Oh, thank you, Sarah.
Lots
How
of
about
love.
that? How about that?
Appreciate.
Lots of love. Like as we dive in, I mean, what's more beautiful than what Sarah just offered us? It's like, what are we meeting in as the nine of us are together? Is there a sense of connectedness here? And then what about love? It's like, all you have to do is like look at Sarah or feel her words. It's like, whoa, that's that quality of love that we keep speaking of, that this self, this beingness is love. What about that? How do you know your nature as love? And as we meet together with the nine of us in this field of self, do we find that there's love here? And how do you know that love is here in you right now? What's the indicator of love? Is it like a little smile like we see in Sarah? Is like a bubbliness? Is it an openness? What's the flavor of this, the flavor and feel of love being here? love. See? Well, let's hear from our friend Jonathan, and then we'll do a little dive together, and then we'll just keep on going around and seeing what's here. What you got, Jonathan?
Hey there, I said. It's interesting. I woke up feeling sad today, not for any reason that I can really come up with. And sadness is maybe my most difficult emotion. So I thought it'd be great to show up and play with different parts. When I'm in sadness, it's hard to normally recognize all the other parts. So I thought that would be fun to, and my video turned off. And I thought it'd be fun to be here and play with that.
Awesome. Why don't we even use that, Jonathan's theme of sadness? Because we can all find sadness, right? We can all find some flavor of sadness. Why don't we just all go into that together? In that movie Inside Out, they had this little blue character, sadness. What is sadness like in your system? Is there an image that goes with the sadness? Does the part have a particular face? Or is it more a vibration? Like if you were speaking the voice of sadness, would it be slower? So where do you find it? So sometimes the sadness can feel pervasive. Found a spot where the sadness is strongest in your system. Is it in your head? It's like, oh, I'm just sad. I'm sad about what happened, or maybe I don't even, there's not a reason for it. There's just sadness. Does it come as a voice? Or is it more like a density of sensation, the sadness, like an anchor, a weight in the belly, in the heart, just like, or in the shoulders, the whole body feels a weight. How do you know the sadness? Where do you find it in you? And then equally important is what's responding to it. As you let yourself know sadness and feel sadness, what are the parts that are like, oh, do I really have to have this for my day? Or like, Sid, really? I came here for joy and bliss and that stuff Sarah was doing. And here you are inviting us into sadness. And you have parts that come in that want to fix it. How do we fix the sadness? You have a fixer part, maybe a psychotherapist part. Oh, I know some methods to deal with this. What responds to the sadness? What parts respond? And then one more question. How is self here? Even in the midst of sadness, even if the sadness is really loud, how can you find the presence of self? What is the presence of self, of beingness that's here? Is it the space itself, your presence, a welcoming, love and acceptance? What's the flavor? What would be your one word for self that is here now, for beingness? And then we're almost done. The experience of sadness, the sadness, if it's a voice, if it's a sensation, if it's a weight. What's the experience of the sadness in the midst of hearing these other voices that want to help? See if there's a sense of hearing the voices. Oh, we can do something. I don't really like this. Let's get away from this. How much longer are we going to have to be in this? Are we going to go through it? Whatever voices that are there. What's that like for the sadness? And then what's it like for the sadness to have self here? Presence, acceptance, love, connectedness, whatever that is. What's it like for the sadness? Last question. Is it a problem that the sadness is here? This question's a big deal. Is it a problem that the sadness is here? And notice the parts that are like, of course it's a problem. I was having a great day. I was having fun. I'm wanting to be in that Sarah space. Of course it's a problem. As we can hear those, the parts, is it a problem that the sadness is here? And then in contrast, can we hear the voice or feel of self, of beingness that can see no problem, that welcomes what is? What do you find in your system to this question? Is it a problem that sadness is here? And then just join me with a breath in, breath out. And as you exhale, we can just come back together, gently opening our eyes together. And like, okay, we can just let that go. We can let all of that go. That sadness, all that. It's like, whoa, that was a lot. Thanks a lot, Jonathan. So Jonathan, what do we it's such a lovely theme for us. What do you find? How did this work in your system with sadness?
Well, unlike other emotions, it's easy to get stuck in it for a while. So I tend to resist it for that reason. But during your little meditation, having self there made it much more okay. And
How did you find it? How does it show up in you? Is it like a little character, a voice, a feeling, a
more like a
wave?
heaviness in my chest. Yeah, then in this case, then it was looking for a story because I didn't have a good story. So it goes from heaviness in my chest to like a problem scanner of trying to find something. And I do tend to think of it as a problem. I liked your last question, like what's the problem of it being here? But if I take more of a self view, then it becomes more okay.
Interesting what Jonathan's just saying, that last thing. It's a problem, it's not a problem. It's from self, it's okay. Then it goes to a part, it becomes a problem, like that.
Yeah. And it's one of the only things where it's hard to find another self. It kind of takes all the oxygen. So actually asking about another self is an interesting exercise.
I find that like a part, like sadness, it can just take the whole picture. It can just obscure it all. And then just to tie this into what David invited us to this morning, the sense of, can I rest as self? Can I rest as this causeless okayness? And also be fully engaged in life, like with what we just did together. Could you know the self that is here, however self shows up for you and what we just explored with sadness? And could you be resting as that okayness and also have everything that was played, the parts that want to help, the parts that resist the sadness? Can all of that be here in the midst of this, which, some of the traditions call the joy of life or the dance of Lila, when all of that is welcome, where all of that can play? Any thoughts on that, David, as we continue going around? And you were muted, and I also, yes.
Yeah, it's all helpful. I have nothing specific to add. This is good. Let's keep at it.
Keep going. We'll keep going. All right, before we move on, Jonathan, anything else you wanted to add with this sadness and anything else from your experience?
Just that talking about it tends to helped me become less identified with it.
Yeah.
What about that for all of us, talking about the sadness? Does it allow not only less identification, but even maybe greater intimacy with it? We're closer with it, with an intimacy with it. And it becomes, as we explore together, maybe the parts that react to it become even less reactive as we're with the sadness. What do you notice as we're with the sadness, and there's self here that's with the sadness, and there's all the parts that resist it and don't like it. And we find that somehow there's that polarity of the parts that don't like it, that maybe they calm down a little bit as we're more intimate with this part, as we're more intimate with sadness. All right, so here we are, the 9 of us, and let's just kind of keep hearing what's here for everyone. And who wants to go next? Zoe!
Hi there, everybody. What's here for me is my edge today is yeah, there's definitely a theme over the months. But what's here today is noticing the difference between trying to find one's purpose in the world when it's kind of protector-led, or when it's kind of self-led. And I kind of notice that when I'm thinking about what job shall I do, you know, what is my purpose here on this planet, some really strong protectors come up that, you know, have got fears around security and safety. And I've been becoming aware of those a lot more over the months. And I'm kind of looking and seeing, well, what would it be like to have a self-led purpose? What would that feel like? What would that feel like? What would it be like? And how do I discern the
Let's ask everybody that question, Zoe, that you're raising. It's like, if Zoe and I were to ask you, what's your purpose? What's your purpose? And to notice the parts that respond. Notice the parts that respond. What's my purpose? And that there's some burden with the parts, if they're wanting to get something. Well, if I do this, I'll have peace. Do this, there'll be appreciation and recognition. I'll be someone who makes a difference in the world. Or if I do this, there'll be a sense of feeling good about myself because the way I'll get to contribute and care for people and make a difference in the world. Or I'll have more money, and then I'll have more freedom and comfort. As we can, what's your purpose from your parts? And can you hear maybe 3 or 4 parts that have ideas on your purpose? And as we hear them from parts, can we hear the sense of what the parts, what they believe is going to be gotten for us from whatever this purpose is? And then alternatively, can we hear, as what Zoe's playing with, what does it look like when purpose comes from self, when it comes from this being, from a place where there is no lack? What do you hear there? You think you'd like to share, Zoe, on how they differ in your system?
Well, I kind of wish it was clearer to tell. What I notice, a lot of driven energy that kind of mainly, you know, is kind of like coming from my chest and my thinking. You know, I can be thinking and researching, yeah, and it's got a very driving energy to kind of like push forwards. And it doesn't, those none of them really want to hear about, kind of resting, relaxing, or taking some space. I guess more self-led. I mean, I kind of know that it's not attached to an outcome, possibly. Like I might try something and it might work and it might not. And I guess it doesn't really, it's not so bothered about whether there's a guaranteed outcome.
Nice.
It's about in it, what I might learn along the way, but
So what about all of us with this? Can we see what's the clear line in your system when a decision, a purpose is coming from a part, coming from lack versus coming from fulfillment? This is a big deal, especially in relationships and things. Am I coming from this or coming from this? It could be applied to everything. Because this is kind of the bigger game we're playing of abiding as self. Right? Some of the traditions call it self-realization. We call it self-leadership in IFS. In contrast to coming from a part that's looking in time to find fulfillment and satisfaction through experience. Any kind of final thoughts, Zoe, on you'd like to add in?
yeah, I mean, well, it's just an interesting, fascinating edge. I mean, like you just said, it can be applied to everything. And that's a kind of interesting frame for it. It's the question that I'm asking about purpose isn't really any different from asking it about any other area of my life. Yeah. Yeah, it's helpful. Let's carry on.
Carry on. So where do we want to go next? Who's got something bubbling, or who wants to go next as we dive today?
Hi.
Antonio!
Hey, Sid, good to see you. So when you earlier asked, what is it that we wanted for today? I had this, I'm so happy to be here with you all. And what I wanted.
Can I tee this up a little bit for everybody? Because I feel something coming here, and let me just say one thing. Part of the game here is if we play this game of innocence, of like, can we really hear the innocence in what each of us are saying? And Antonio is about to share more about what's happening inside of his system and what he wants. Can we see and hear the innocence of his parts? Like, are we hearing parts, and are we hearing self? And can we hear that innocence in what he's sharing? And there's a reason we play this game, because it's easier to hear it in others often than our own systems. And part of the idea for our time together is if we can really be like falling in love with each other's systems and feeling that innocence and beauty in the parts, then we'll just notice, it'll just happen, that it'll just rub off and we start hearing our own that way. And so that's my invitation as we each share. And you're welcome, anybody, to say, Sid, this is such new age bullshit or touchy-feely stuff. This isn't. And it's just wide open. But it's just like what I found the most effective thing so far is this. I found this game to be really helpful. Before we go back to Antonio, anything bubbling, any responses? All right, then let's dive. Antonio, please continue, and apologies for my interruption.
So I was really looking forward to having this experience of connecting with you all, because I really enjoy it and I really value being able to be present. Then my neighbor, like something is happening just outside my door, and I started feeling this huge rage bubbling up and this huge frustration because I wasn't getting what I wanted. And it took me so long to even recognize what was going on, and as you guys were just as Jonathan was saying, just talking about just mentioning the frustration, just witnessing it for what it was. It allowed for some spaciousness around it, and it helps in being, it just being able to hold it a little better, and now just sharing it with you, and it also helps enormously. But I was trying to really be present for what everyone was sharing, because it's I love it so much to just be able to witness what everyone is going through, and my parts love just seeing other systems just being alive, and sharing what it's like for them, and I was really frustrated, and now it's a lot better.
What's this like for all of us? We're with Antonio. Oh, David? Yeah.
This is why I come here. Maybe this is why we all come here. I've just witnessed, I'm so happy for you, Antonio. We've just witnessed a concrete example of what we were talking about, to embrace and enter into this thing, which was initially, I don't want this because I want to be here with this people. It's distracting. It was a real life here and now example of seeing the part, being the part, letting go of the part, watching from a larger self. So again, it reinforces how much fun there is in coming together with all you guys.
Mhm.
And thank you, Antonio.
Mhm. I spent years literally traveling the planet, as Jonathan did too, to be with the Eckhart Tolles, the Rupert Sparrows, the Dalai Lamas, to be with these folks because they held these vibrations, that they were embodiments of this beingness. But for me, I don't have to do that anymore, because these people just show up on my screen, like today with you guys, because it's like where Antonio just was when he started with this place of this openness, this not knowing, that exquisite vulnerability. Like, oh my God, there's Eckhart right here in this now, this presence. My system just dances with that, and it's like, oh wow, this is a yummy flavor of self. And then to include frustration and rage in the exquisiteness of this openness. What's it like for each of us? And is it okay? And frustration and rage be here? Can even that be here? And that be welcomed? Antonio, anything else you'd like to share about what you're finding?
I'm just sensing what this what's underneath the rage and the frustration. And it's these experiences of connection, of coming together with you, they're so rare, and this part of me is really craving for that. And it lets me know that's missing a lot of the time from my life, and at the same time it's really moved that that we get to have those here.
Tell us more about what your system finds in this connection, this togetherness, and this, be it belonging, this whatever your flavor is, if it's unity, tell us what you find in that.
Life just makes sense. It's talk about purpose. This feels like that, like there's real purpose in meeting each other, and coming together and being there for each other like we do here.
And what is found as when this is happening, we're coming together, we're here for each other, we're connecting. What is the nourishment that's found for your parts, for your system? What's in for all of us? What nourishment is found here in that? Is it an acceptance, the connection and intimacy of being seen?
There's, yes, being seen plays a big part. There's something else. The word that comes to me is coherence. There's a sense of the word's escaping me right now. Harmony.
Harmony.
There's a sense of harmony.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Very nice.
We can kind of feel into this, right? We can feel into Antonio's system, and we can feel, you might be able to feel some of the longing for this, right? As he's described, the longing for this coherence, this connection, this harmony. And then you might be able to feel the sense of his system finding some of that here. And so what about in your system for all of us? Where do we find? Because the game is just about the longing, and then helping the longing find that what it's looking for can be found right here. So what about the longing in your system for what Antonio's been speaking of, this harmony, this coherence, this connectedness? Can you find parts that are longing for that, to be seen, to be heard, to be received? This is an intimate sharing. You find parts that are longing for this inside of you. And then where we go with this is, what's most like what's being longed for that's here now? That's here now, that's intrinsic in your being. These what Antonio's been pointing to. Sense of harmony. What flavor of harmony is inherent, is here now for you? What's most like coherence that's here? It's independent of experience, coherence that's just here as a flavor of your beingness of self. This is where it gets a little bit more difficult, this connectedness, because it can be easier to find the connectedness as the 9 of us are together. But what about connectedness? Just like to the tree outside your home, that is just here, intrinsic. What's most like that which is here now? Any final thoughts on this, Antonio? How does this play in your system?
Yeah, I can notice the sources for those right now available. Yeah.
Anything else you'd like to share with us, Antonio?
No, I'm really grateful that I was able to
Beautiful.
share this with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your gifts for all of us. How's that? How's everybody doing? How are you? How are you? Just notice what's here for each of us. How are you? What flavors, what parts are here? It's like, wow, that was so cool what Antonio said. Maybe an understanding part here, making sense of it in Sid, like really receiving what he said. Another part that's maybe a little skeptic part. Is there a skeptic part? Like when Sid talks about what my parts want, they want this coherence and harmony, then he asks me what's most like that here now. Yeah, that's a nice thought, but I'm a little skeptic if that's really true, if I can find these qualities here. Maybe there's a skeptic part. Like, how are you? What's here right now? Maybe there's a little tired, maybe there's some boredom, whatever's here, maybe my back's sore, or I'm hungry. And then what's it all arising in? What's the background? What's the flavor of beingness that's here? Is it like that love from Sarah? Is it more like this not knowing that I was experiencing Antonio's? Openness of Jonathan's? What's the flavor of the beingness that's here for you now? All right, then what's bubbling? Who has anything bubbling? Any responses? Anything that's coming up? And then if nothing's bubbling because Eli's leaving us on the hour, Eli, is there anything else that you'd like to kind of throw into this yummy mix, this stew that we're making together?
Nothing at the moment, but I can jump in if something comes up after.
Okay. All right. So how about Jessica? What she got for us in this early morning on the West Coast?
Oh, goodness. I have a part. I don't feel her as much now, but I had a part who was sad. And what I noticed was the lack of resistance inside to her being sad. And how just because the way I was treated for my feelings growing up, there was a lot of internalized fighting about what it was okay for me to feel and not feel. And so noticing inside that my parts are becoming okay with one another and fighting with one another less. And then how does that translate outside? Like, what spaces am I in? And will it be okay if I show up sad? And then as everyone kept talking, I feel a little hesitant to share this, but I think it's okay. I have parts who don't want to be alive, who sometimes are even angry with me for still being here. And as everyone was talking, it was almost like I've chopped off so much of me that I'm not alive anyway. Because I keep trying, like my parts keep trying to be okay for other people, what other people will accept and approve of. So I kind of have been sitting with that for the last few minutes.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you, Jessica. I'm just gonna kind of walk through what I was hearing just because you just hit So many universal themes for us. I love that we started with that the sadness was here, and kind of to echo what Jonathan woke up with this morning. And I love where you went with it. It's like that you had some rules from childhood that some feelings were okay and some weren't okay. Could we all relate to that, as Jessica was sharing about that, with like the sadness and some feelings that we aren't okay to be with? And then who is it inside of you that kind of holds that understanding? What part, what voice? These feelings are okay. It's like it's good, joy, bliss, connectedness, flow. Like those are good, relaxation. But sadness, anger, like where's that held in your system? And this was actually the reason on that email I sent a couple days ago, where I put the picture of Santa Claus. This was the whole idea with that. It was like Santa Claus, right? Naughty and nice list. And like, and it's like at some point we're like, oh, it was very discouraging for me. It's like Santa Claus isn't real. That was really sad. But it was like when we found that out. But then what I keep finding with people is that the naughty and nice list, the good and bad, the sense of feelings that I can feel and those that I shouldn't be, that there's still like we have these internal judges of internal authorities like Santa Claus that we carry, and many of them are similarly from our childhood, just like Santa Claus, that aren't really applicable to our understanding today, but we still have in our systems. And so that's my first question for all of us. What's your inner Santa Claus? What's your one that says, well, sadness, anger, joy, love, yes. One that discerns that inner authority. And then there's so much that Jessica shared. It was like she said that she was noticing less resistance to the sadness. What about that for all of us? Because sometimes, you'll hear some of these people I speak of that we enjoy on YouTube. They'll say, what occurred, what we think the problem is really isn't the problem, that sadness is here. It's the response to it from our parts that make it a problem. The resistance to what occurred, what's here. And as Jessica says, her parts that are resisting sadness, they seem to be a little lighter. How do you relate to that in your system? And then maybe for all of us, what is your loudest part that resists? What's your loudest one? Maybe it's to sadness, or maybe it's to something that occurred, or when you look in the mirror and something says it should be different. Like, do you have a regular loudest one that's like the expression of resistance in my system? Like, is it the critic? Is it the achiever? Is it a perfectionist? And then another line that Jessica gave us, is it okay to show up as sadness? So if I was to ask your system, is it okay that you're sad? Where do you hear the no? It's not okay. What's that no? What's the loudest no to that? And as you notice it, can that one be included and welcomed as well? That no. And then Jessica touched on a couple other parts. Ones that are just, maybe they're just so tired. They're just so tired of trying. They're just exhausted. And they're like, why are we still alive? I don't want to do this. This is too much work. And it's not going to work out anyway. We're not going to get what we want. It's like this could be, and don't go here in your system if there's anything where this is like more than if there are parts that are like, we don't really want to go there. We don't want to touch that. Please don't, we don't push anything here. But can you, as we hear Jessica speak of those parts, just how universal they are, right? Because there's this idea sometimes we're not supposed to speak of those parts of us. But how horrible would that be with the movie Inside Out if we're like sadness, oh, we're just putting you in the corner. We're not gonna hear you. It's like for everything just gets to be included. So our parts that are really tired, you're like, this is just God, I just want to stay in bed. I quit. I don't want to do this anymore. Can those be welcomed as well? Can those be welcomed? And even the ones that are really, they've just kind of given up. They're like, we've already, it's been a lot of years and we've compromised so much. We've sold out so much of our true expression. We've really like, I don't even know if I know what true expression is anymore. It's like, so, and it's parts that might feel that way. Do we not just feel so much love towards them as Jessica points to them, or I could speak the same ones in my system, and I'm guessing we can all point to parts that have felt this way. Do we not find just compassion and love for them? Self, see if the beingness can include those parts of us, the ones that just want to give up. That are like, you've messed up so bad, why even, those may be included. Jessica, anything else you'd like to add to this exquisite door you opened for us?
I don't think so.
And let me just check to see how you're doing, right? Because the whole idea is for this to be so gentle as you're being held with your 8 friends, and there's a space of love and acceptance. And it's not just yourself, it's this field of self and being seen that's happening here. But just wanting to check and see if everybody's okay, if your system's doing okay, having shared that, because it's nothing foreign to any of us. Just for that, just everybody's with me on that, right? We can find nothing Jessica shared is foreign. I could have shared everything Jessica shared from my own experience. How you doing, Jessica? Anything else you'd like to share with how your system is?
Yeah. For me, a lot of times my edge is what is safe to share in community. And so I think my system's pretty cautious about that. So I feel okay. Yeah. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. How about that edge for all of us, what Jessica said, the parts that are like these wise parts, like what's safe to share in community? Like what part for you does that and checks on safety? Is it safe to share this? We all find that in our own systems. And how that part's a superhero, right? Because we don't want to be like, hey, I'm just going to get naked here on this thing. Right? It's these things there's no need to do any of that. Everything gets to be gentle. And so we get to love the one that looks after us. So here we are with the 8 of us with you. For each of us, the 8 of us that are with you right now. And we have some people that are leaving on the hour. Is there anything bubbling for those? Anything else that's wanting to be shared that's here for you now? Everybody doing okay? Is there anything bubbling? Any concerns that are coming up? Because we've just gone with Antonio and Jessica. There was a lot there. Everybody doing all right? Anything that's wanting to be shared? And then how about for all of us in the midst of the parts that are here now, what's your quickest move, your quickest way of falling back into self, to sink into self from here? Is it a sense of stepping back? Is it the Advaita move, who am I? Is it a sense of zooming in to something, getting closer to it, and then intimacy, finding self is here? Is it a sense of looking around and seeing, oh, David's here with me, and then there's the connectedness here with David? What is it for each of you that brings you back to self, to a fullness of self, to a fullness of being, to a fullness of causeless okayness? And we just got a moment of Sarah earlier. I'm not sure if Sarah, is there anything you'd like to share about the edge that's happening in your system? Anything else She might be feeding the cats. Oh, there she is.
Hi. Well,
Hey.
Santa's here for me. I resonated with Jessica. I was so sad. Actually, I was sad yesterday and I cried myself to sleep because I had an Amazon package that got lost, then it got canceled. I got an email that it got damaged. There was a lot of back and forth with the Amazon people, but then today it just magically arrived. And and then there was another package that was also late, but now it's here and I'm like trying out my stuff. I'm sorry. Like my shoes are here and I just love them and my dress and yeah, let me do a little show. so so yeah, I'm just a little bit happy and excited like Santa's here for me and my books. My books are here. So yeah, I'm just gonna be happy for a little while. I'm gonna be back in a few.
Great. Enjoy
And that's what,
your happiness, Sarah.
thank you so much. This is what's coming up for me, and I'm gonna share more about this when I'm back.
Wonderful. What about that? What from experience gives you happiness like that? But does it something that a friend says? Is it really like all your dream orders from Amazon finally all come at one time? It's like, yes, my new dress, my shoes, my books. And then just that discernment that we were playing with from Zoe's at the very beginning here, the sense of like purpose, the sense of outside and inside. It's like meaning, finding meaning through experience and fulfillment from experience, which is awesome. And also the idea of this fulfillment that is intrinsic, that is not dependent on the Amazon order, this intrinsic fulfillment. And how does that play in your system? Is it a different flavor of joy and happiness? Or is it this, does it seem to be the same, or is it different? What's the difference when it comes from experience, where it comes from this intrinsic being? Or some folks would say it only comes from intrinsic being, that the experience of coming from experience is just, it's the absence of desire and lack. And I don't know. I don't think any of that even matters. It's just to like get a sense for yourself between the inward, outward, and inward, or this intrinsic being that's here. What do we have? Anything bubbling? Anything bubbling? And maybe I had this thought that we were going around, we just talked to Brenda for like 30 seconds about vulnerability, and didn't know if Brenda, if there was more you'd like to share as we continue this dive together.
Sure.
Yay.
I'm just feeling right now just really a sense of gratitude. It just at a deeper level, a deeper aha level of connection. I know last time we were together here, I was talking about feeling some sadness, like in the deep desire to just even going grocery shopping or what. That was my example of feeling connected to, in my everyday life. But just again, at a deeper level, being reminded how we are all the same. I mean, we have our different stories and different parts that are more active than others, but if I am just mindful and present to whoever I'm speaking with, whether they're on the spiritual path, so to speak, or not, I will be more connected and know and see myself in them and their parts, as I'm doing right now with others. And so yeah, that's just brings me a lot of gratitude.
What's that like? What's that like, Brenda? And just for all of us, so we hear this possibility that Brenda's describing, like we're out in the world and maybe we're in the world and we're having to feel like we have a lot of weight, lots of things we have to do. And in the midst of that, we start noticing this connectedness. And we start noticing as we are with others, wow, like there's something that's all the same here. And like some of them, in India, they do it as namaste, this greeting. The essence of me greets the essence of you, and seeing that essence, that shared self in the world and others. And we start recognizing their parts as more of these universal parts that I know very well. Nothing's foreign to me, that I know in my system. As that opens up and we live in the world seeing glimpses of that, what's that like? We're hearing, Brenda, I'm hearing from you, there's a sense of gratitude that comes. Tell us more.
I just feel ease in my body, and just I don't know, like trust, and yeah. I just want to say something else on a completely different note, only because it came up last week. So and like to apply it potentially with what we're doing here. So I felt some stress last week with a very common thing that comes up for me often when you talked about, what's your one, I forget what language you use, but anyway, so it was like financially related. And the truth, I mean, I know that I have enough, and yeah, it's this old childhood thing that comes up here, here and there. And I know that I'm much more aware of it. But I didn't like, because I thought I was going to say I really had that under control, but it's like, and at the moment that it occurred, I felt stressed, and I could even I could even be the observer at that moment. But yeah, I guess probably what I'm saying, what I'm feeling right now is like I'm wishing, so to speak, or not wishing would be the right word. I'm not in full acceptance of when these things come up, because I think, okay, that's not the part that I want, so if I'm being truthful. But anyway, I got to, within 24 hours, I got to look at it from another perspective.
Yes.
Accept it.
But let's not miss this. This is what you're pointing to, just for everyone. Like the sense of Brenda's like, hey, I'm okay. I got plenty of money. Everything's okay. But then there's this voice that comes. No, there's not enough. There's lack here. And for me, and Jonathan can speak to this much clearer than me, but it's like this, to me, this is what the Buddhists are pointing to when they use this word dukkha, and they say there's this perpetual dissatisfaction. Eli, bye, Eli. That this perpetual dissatisfaction, and that's when we play with parts, the sense of that the very nature of parts is the sense that there's a want and lack there. And it's just like, what the hell? Everything's okay. And then there's the sense of there's not enough. There's not enough. This perpetual dissatisfaction, just so that we can all find this, that what Brenda's speaking of. It can be, we probably can find it around money, that, that we have voices that come up like that, regardless, even if we have $20 million in the bank account, right? It's like, that voice can be there. It can be there. And that's what becomes so interesting. What you got with this, Brenda?
Really just, as David was saying, I just appreciation for the group here to just come into a deeper awareness and acceptance of all my parts, because it's just part, they'll always be there, and just allowing them to just be, and yeah, just be present with whatever part is there. And when I know this at a deeper level, I'm just more accepting of what is in all those parts in each moment. So I'm grateful.
Nice. So what about that with this, however this perpetual dissatisfaction shows up in your system? Lack, want, not good enough. It's just like what Brenda's saying, well, these precious parts. This is what their voice is. Just like in this movie, we had this sadness part in Inside Out too, and it's what it's just doing sadness, and that's what it is. It can't be like sadness, get away. We don't know. It's just like it's just an aspect of it. It's just this voice that comes.
Compassion really comes to mind, and it has. I have been feeling that even when others were talking today, really toward them and to myself for those parts, because I have, or probably still do, I'm sure I still do, I just not always easy on myself, and to have that compassion, but I really have felt compassion during this.
Yes. And you might be, as you hear Brenda saying this, it's like, oh, Sid, I learned that 10 years ago, like be compassionate for what arises inside of me. But I want to suggest that what Brenda's pointing to for some people can be the whole path home, can be the entire path home. If there really is, as these parts arise, there really is a sense of the compassion for them and seeing their innocence. That it's just sadness saying what it's doing. It's just this critic part trying to help. As we really start seeing with that compassion and that innocence, what way Rupert Spira describes it is like the content become more transparent, and where beingness just starts to shine through. And I want to suggest as we have this compassion towards them, this understanding, we start to see their innocence, that's where it all goes. And it's more and more seeing the innocence shine through. And then as Jessica describes, while the parts seem less resistant, something seems to be changing and lightening up. I think this is, I don't like using the word progressive path, but I think there's a progressiveness to this where it opens up that way. And I got a little nod from Jonathan, who's interviewed all the people we watch on YouTube. Any thoughts on this, Jonathan, on this one?
My only thought is, how do we take all this information and put it into something that we can access? I liked your question. What is your, I think I wrote down the question. What is your quickest path to coming back to self? And I think that's often the weakest link. We have all this knowledge and there's different parts, but I'm always looking for really the answer to that question. I came up with an acronym that I use for that, which is the acronym is SMASH. And I often find that if I do several like 2-second methods in a row, that it can really alter my state very quickly. So the acronym SMASH, the first S stands for silence. And these are just my ways of getting back to self quickly. Silence, knowing that I'm surrounded by silence for some reason works really well for me. And that's the S. And then M is, if you haven't seen it, I really recommend the movie Peaceful Warrior. Which is an amazing movie. It's based on the book, The Way of the Peaceful Warrior, but the movie is just as good as the book. And at the end, he does this thing where he says, who are you? And the character Dan answers, I am this moment. And I really like that answer. So M stands for this moment. And then my co-host Brian often uses the word just allow for tapping into beingness. So that's the A in SMASH, just fully allow. And then the other S is for stillness, where I focus on how something is still. And then the H stands for headless. If you know the headless way, I look at myself through headlessness. So I spend like maybe 1 second on each of those things. And that helps me to, in 5 seconds, get to a place of deep beingness. Because there's so much information, so many ideas. The question is, how can we like point them so powerfully in the direction of beingness that's clearly part of our reality. So that's what I was taking. And for different people, it's going to be different things. Like Brenda mentioned, the importance of compassion. Compassion is certainly one ingredient. It's just a matter of what the answer to your question, Sid. What's your low-hanging fruit really for getting into beingness? And I think that's probably the most important question people can ask.
Thank you, Jonathan. How about that? Jonathan's like the most important question we could ask. Like, what is it that brings us back to home? What works? What's the low-hanging fruit for you? What brings you there? As we hear Jonathan's, right? This is the silence. Yes, the silence. The M of this moment. The now. The A of allowance. This we call it kind of welcoming. Allowance of what is. S of stillness. Stillness. And just a fun question. Can stillness be here even when there is activity in your system? Is there still stillness here? And then this last one, he calls it headlessness. It's just a path. They call it the headless way. It's just like this emptiness. There's all this emptiness. There's emptiness seeing, emptiness experiencing. That's just my interpretation of it. But is there one of those of Jonathan's that works best for you? It's like, no, it's that. Or is it none of those? It's more like Brenda's, the compassion. Is it what works best in your system? And David, I'm curious what's bubbling up for you. We just got a little bit from you this morning. How's it going?
I really appreciated Jonathan's remarks, and it just kind of recently, there's a part of me that has a strong attraction, if not compulsion, to thinking, analyzing, producing words and descriptions for myself, to other people, all that kind of thing. And recently it came to me that with respect to this quality that we call being, although there's a gazillion different names for that which cannot be named, instead of trying to name that which cannot be named, it might be more useful to, instead of looking at the what it is question, is how to get there question, or how to relax into it question. And I felt that was really similar to what Jonathan was saying about his tips. And I have my own, and there's interestingly a lot of overlap with what Jonathan had said. I'll give you mine, okay?
Can I add something first, David?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to interject something.
Sure.
That I love how to get there, right? The pragmatic for each of our systems. When we get a little blended with a part, how do we find this that David was speaking of earlier, the simultaneity, the resting in beingness, or how do we just return home to this? And at the same time in our work, in our exploration, and for me, this is maybe the most challenging edge in this facilitation role, is the idea of what I call, like, we're working on 3 levels at the same time. And the 3rd level is that home is already here.
Yeah.
That there's no place to go. This is the pathless path of what you are. As we look at the 7 of us that are with you, that there's nothing missing, that we are this innocence and this beauty. And then at the same time, we have parts that don't recognize that yet, right? They don't know it. Self does. Self only is this. But we have parts that haven't updated yet to that. And for those, We use all of these skillful means. We've had Jonathan, and we keep hearing them. And then David has some that he's about to share with us for how his system makes that move. But I just want to say again, at the same time, if we can play with this premise that the sky is already here, that there's no lack in the sky, and that just like the sky, with the weather, that the weather just comes and goes, but the sky is always here. The same thing with us, that our nature is this fulfillment, this cause, this okayness, this peace, this love, and it just gets obscured. Back to you, David.
All right, good intro. So I don't have an acronym for this. Maybe I'll work with that a little bit, but here they are. Relaxed attention. So I'm attentive, but allowing the focus to go wherever it goes or to be everywhere, just relaxed attention. And then here now. Because if it's true, which it is, that it's the being is already here, so just be here now. And then my next one is quiet stillness, which rings rather harmoniously with a couple of Jonathans. And then finally, I have the word subject with a question mark. It's kind of what you referred to earlier, Sid, as the Advaita move, or as Jonathan, I feel it's very similar, what Jonathan referred to as headless. Who's being attentive? Who's seeing this? Who's here now? Whose attention is relaxed and open? You know, kind of looking for the subject, knowing that you can't really look at it, but the process of opening to the subject. I'm not gonna say anymore. But they're kind of
nice.
They work for me. And the funny thing that I've noticed as I started to work with these tips is that instead of it being a progression, it's just on one of them.
Yeah, it's a great point, David. I gotta go, but great session, Sid, and good being with all of you.
Jonathan, great to be with you. Thank you, Jonathan.
Okay, buddy.
And so, how about David's 4 windows? What's most like each of those for you? This relaxed attention. What's your version of that? Relaxed attention. You just be here now. Be here now. What's your version of that? Be here now. Quiet stillness. What's your version of quiet stillness? How about this last one? He calls subject question mark. It's like, who? Who is this part? Who's here? And to find, perhaps if we look close enough, that we find everything is of this beingness, this fullness, this emptiness, this aliveness, this love. Who? 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 Subject question mark. I'm curious to hear a little bit more from Sarah. Because now she's here. She doesn't have her dress on anymore. But before we go there, is there anything bubbling for anybody? Anything bubbling with where David and Jonathan just took us? Is everybody doing okay? Oh yeah, sorry, Antonio.
As I was listening to both David and Jonathan, it was all taking me to a place. The way I experience it is it's like a sense of curiosity that's constantly being renewed each passing moment. There's like this interest in what's taking place, and it's very joy. It gives me a lot of joy to notice how it doesn't die out. It's constantly renewing itself. It's like, okay, let me check what's here now, what's here now, and now, and now, and now is like this open night. There's like a thirst that's constantly being satiated. I don't know. It's like it's a very pleasurable experience.
How about that for all of us? With the what's here, what's David's like, give me a break, Sid. Or what's here now? What's here now? And as you say it, what's here now in the terms of this beingness, this satiation, this fullness, this satisfaction, what's here now? How do you taste it? Is it an aliveness? Is it a vibration? Is it a connectedness? Is it a smile? Is it a laugh? What's here now? What's here now? Can you touch? Is it a presence? How do you know this fullness of being, this causeless okayness? How do you know it? What's here now? This satiation. Is it a presence, an aliveness, an awareness, an okayness? How do you know it? What's here now? And let's just take we just take one moment and go around and get like one word for each person as far as what you find for this satiation, what's here now. And you can skip to it. I'll just call names if I might go around my screen. Antonio, what's your word?
The only thing that I'm sorry, I can just put it in one word, but I feel like even like my actual taste buds, they're actually they behave just like they do as if I was eating like like I'm full of the so I don't have a word, but that's what came to me.
About that with what he just said, like the taste, but he can taste it. He can taste this. How do you know this in your system? We've got our five senses, we've got our thinking. How do you know the satiation? Antonio, taste it. What do you find, Brenda? What's your word, or how do you know this?
Presence would be my word. And I know this. It's hard to put into words. Just, yeah. I'm not sure how to put it into words. It just feel. I guess all my senses, just really feeling and in tune with all of my senses. Yeah.
Thank you. Presence. How do we know this presence? How do you know this presence? It's the senses. What's that like? This fullness of presence. Jessica, what's your word?
I think at the moment, I'm going to say peace, like a lack of striving.
Thank you. Peace. To know Jessica's word, peace. How do we know that? How do we know peace is here? Or there's a lack of striving. You find it as in the negative, what is not here. Help us know peace. It's beautiful. Thank you, Jessica. Zoe, what's your word?
So it would be letting go, and it's like it's letting go in my body. So it's muscles relaxing and letting go and settling and kind of grounding.
Thank you. How somatic it is in Zoe's system and how she knows it through her body. David, what's your word?
Well, Brenda said my word before I could, so I'll just repeat it, presence. But I wanted to comment on Antonio's deal about what's here now and now and now. And I find that I have found that and continue to find that I have to recognize and let go of this premise that is pre-existing, that I already know what's here. I know I'm looking at the screen. I know everybody. I see the face. I know my computer. I know my chair. I know this. I already know this. I don't have to look at it. I don't have to be present because I already know it all. I don't know it all.
What's the
I know
difference?
nothing.
What's the difference in that? Like, it's the sense of knowing it, right? Versus the Antonios and now, what am I finding? And now the saturation, and now what's the experience of it? Versus something apart that kind of understands it, classifies it. Okay, and then we go to Sarah. So I'm going to ask her this question, and then also just to see we can get a little bit more Sarah, because we've been missing our Sarah today. What's your word, Sarah?
Oh, for me, it's a sense of relief, a sense of like having my wants, they're met. So there's that sense of, oh, okay, now I got what I wanted. So there's that relief. And
Isn't that interesting? So how about that? The sense of how do we know? Like there's I think was it Brenda who was saying the absence of, or Jessica, the absence of what isn't here, and that Sarah's kind of finding the same thing. It's the relief. It's the relief. We're not doing this. We're not having to do this. Wow, there it is. There's this satisfaction. And then so tell us something else, Sarah. Give us something else. We've only got like, is it like 7 minutes left? Tell us something.
well, it's, yeah, like for me, today is like Santa's here for me. Like, I was really sad yesterday and I cried about a lot of things. And some of them were about this Amazon packages that were lost. And then, and even this meeting getting canceled. And then then I just woke up and I got an email like, oh, it's actually happening today. And then now in the meeting, oh, my package is here. So like all of the things that I was sad about, they're here. So there's nothing to be so upset about anymore. So there's that sense of relief. And it's been like a theme of sadness the past few days for me because I lost a few kittens. So there was a sense of loss and grief and then seeing like the mama cat, how she's handling it, and she seems to be okay. She's always happy. She purrs when she sees me, and so it made me feel like, oh, she's enjoyed the kittens while they were here, and now that they're gone, she was sad the first day she wasn't eating, but then the next day she was fine. And the resilience of her, like I realized, oh, I need to be more resilient. I can't wallow in that. I need to find strength to just enjoy every day as it is.
How about the sadness? Because that was our kind of our first theme today, and maybe one of the primary themes of today, thanks to Jonathan and Jessica, and now you describing the loss of your cats, the latest disappointments that came, and the sadness that was there. And it brings me back to where we went with Jessica. Is it okay that sadness is here? Can we find the place from self that just from this beingness, right? That doesn't have a preference for joy or sadness. It just welcomes them all. See if you can touch that with the sadness. Amazon, you didn't bring my boxes. Where's my dress? Where are my shoes? Where are my books? It's like, oh, it's just, can that all be included in this? Can the disappointment and then the depth of the grief and sadness that comes and the loss of cats, right? Very kind of real sadness. And then, just as we're kind of coming to an end today, just with the sadness theme, as we become intimate with sadness, what do we find? What do we find in this sadness? Notice what's it like to be with the sadness in your system. And do we find are there any glimpses of transparency that in the sadness there is beingness, that it is made of the same thing that joy is made of. It's made of this beingness. Just notice if there are any glimpses of that in the sadness itself. And it's not necessary. We're just playing. There's that, and then there's a welcoming of the sadness to see if we can really be okay with the sadness that's here. And then we also notice the parts, lastly, that react to the sadness, that don't like it. God, it went on. It was a horrible day. It was bad. It was a bad day. And like these parts that don't like that sadness was here. It was a bad day. We much rather have beach feel joyful. And can those parts be included? All of that be included. Final thoughts, Sarah. Any final thoughts from Sarah as we open it up to see what's left as we close today?
Yes, there was that sense of appreciation for sadness, the contrast, like, and then feeling joy of, you know, having what I want after. Like, it feels so good to have what you want after you've been sad and lacking that thing. So if there wasn't that sense of contrast, maybe joy wouldn't have been as much as it is. So there's a sense of appreciation, like, oh, I'm so grateful that you're here, and then I'm so grateful that you're not. And now there's something that feels even much better.
So how about that, which is Sarah just said, the contrast between like the sense of fulfillment and the sense of lack, the contrast there. The appreciation of that, however that plays in our systems. Just the contrast. And then even in the midst of these senses, the sense of opposite, this like everything's okay, fulfillment, happiness, and then lack and sadness and grief. Can we see how both of those parts, those two different perspectives, that they're all arising within a space? They're all rising within the space. You could say it's the space of the eight of us right now, or it's the space of being, or it's the space of this field. And what is it that they're arising in? What is this field? Like David gave us his 4 ways of knowing it. And Jonathan gave us 5. And as we've been exploring, what are they arising in? This silence, this stillness, this now, this okayness, this headlessness, this space. And we are down to 1 minute. Any final words as we close from this grand journey adventure that we've had together today?
Let's do it again soon.
Yes. Thank you so much, Sid.
Yay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Apologies again for the inconvenience with my uncertainty, and I'm so glad you guys were able to come. This was wonderful, and thank you for, again, last thing, as you look around and notice that today really was about each of us sharing from what's happening in us, and through that, we received all these gifts and the depths and the new understanding. So thank you, everybody, and hope to see you soon. Bye.
Bye-bye. Love you.